I come decidedly low-tech this morning, and I apologize for that. I've been really impressed with how Drummond and Ellen put together this conference. It's kind of different from what we're used to in the stodgy, boring world of philanthropy. I was half expecting, after the music and the digital high tech and everything, the pitchers of water to have vodka in them instead. the W. Actually, I kind of wish they had vodka in them. But thank you, Drummond and Ellen. You guys are great. The Tides folks are putting this together, and Tom David. Drummond and Ellen have been together for a long time, longer than my first marriage, actually, as a team. I had a hard time. I didn't pull this thing together till last night after putting my daughter to bed, because I had a hard time. What do you talk about at a momentum building conference? So with that struggle, I went to the dictionary just to get grounded and centered. And the word momentum is defined as the property, at least Webster defines it, as the property of a moving body has due to mass and motion. So that made me wonder about who's in this body and where's it going? Where's it coming from? So I decided that the momentum building for this, at least my little presentation, and for this moment that we're in, has to do with movement, the motion of us, the mass, those of us who care about issues of social justice and equity and opportunity. And we're going from hope to change. And those are two words that you've heard a lot in this election for sure, because someone's been very good at talking about hope and change. Although I wish we had a nickel for every politician we've sent to Washington or Sacramento who talked about vote for me, I'm the change candidate, right? And we just heard 20 minutes from the previous speaker about how little has changed, and whatever has changed is actually going in the worst direction. But I want to talk about hope and change because for those of us in the world of philanthropy, we kind of sit at that nexus between hope and change. And I'm going to define, back to the dictionary, hope is a desire or expectation of fulfillment. Change, to make different. Replace with another. Okay? Big difference between hope and change. The words kind of roll off the tongue in an election campaign, but there's a huge Grand Canyon-like chasm between hope and meaningful change. Right? So I want to start with 3 stories of hope. And they are from organizations that we fund. I could have picked literally 1,000 at our foundation. I'm going to talk about Second Chance and Cocoa and Santa Clara. And the theme here, a couple of themes to have as backdrop for these stories. One is I got my start in this business, the business of change, actually as a practicing pediatrician in Camden, New Jersey and in North Philadelphia many years ago, during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic. And I was a practicing pediatrician when I saw crack cocaine visit itself upon North Philadelphia and East Camden and North Camden, East Camden, and North Philadelphia. And I saw the devastation and the havoc that the introduction of this drug played in a community that had been relatively hopeful, although poor and struggling. Camden still remains to this day a poor and struggling community. I think they've had 4 successive mayors that have been indicted, and they still struggle both politically and from an economic development standpoint. But crack cocaine opened my eyes completely about the limitations of healthcare. Okay? Because the problem in that community, given how unhealthy it became during that outbreak of crack cocaine, had nothing to do with health insurance. Okay? And public health researchers today tell us that 80% of what influences your health status and your life expectancy actually has nothing to do with doctors or hospitals. It has nothing to do with clinical care. It has nothing to do with health insurance. So one of the key themes is we have to reform the notion of health reform, that this is far beyond the issue of health insurance coverage. So two of my stories have nothing to do with health insurance coverage, and one of them does. First story is Second Chance. Second Chance is a grassroots community-based organization in Southeast San Diego. We fund them because they wanted to embark on a program, an effort to help recently released felons reintegrate successfully into their community. Okay? I know, on FOSS, doesn't sound like a health program to you. Very much a health program for that community, is it not? Okay. And so what we have found, after we've been funding them for about going on 5 years, we commissioned a 3-year independent university evaluation of their work. I'll give you the short story because I only have 11 minutes and 41 seconds left in my presentation. But the short story is that after 3 years, the hundreds of clients that have been served at Second Chance, 80% of them are not only out of prison, but they are gainfully employed today. Okay? That is the reverse, you may applaud. That is the reverse of the state of California's experience in terms of corrections, okay? The opposite is, in other words, 80%, nearly 80% actually are back in prison after 3 years. You with me? So, hope, change, right? Okay? And so I visited Second Chance just to see what, how they were shooting the lights out with these numbers. And I'm not going to tell you all the elements of their program, but I just want to give you one very quick and dirty, pragmatic yet innovative part of their curriculum. Okay, so they meet the inmates the minute they come out of the prison. They don't give them a card and say, give us a call if you need some help. They actually bring them right to the program. And one of the, on the day that I spent there, one of the programs or classes that they had for these ex-felons and former inmates was called Handshake 101. Okay, we're spending $400,000 a year in grant money, and they're talking about handshakes, right? What's the deal here? Okay. Well, Handshake 101 is a class where the staff, all ex-felons, okay, teach the new ex-felons how to do a handshake, eye contact, and a smile. Because when you're looking for a job, what's the first thing that strikes an employer, right? Because this is a skill they do not have, okay? I mean, if I'm at San Quentin or Chowchilla or Donovan and I walk around saying, hi, my name is Bob, how are you? Right? I mean, that's risky behavior at San Quentin, is it not? Okay? But phenomenally important behavior if you're going to try and get a job. Okay? And you can watch Scott Silverman, who's the wonderful executive director of this program, and he says, I want to see a firm handshake and eye contact, and I want to see a smile. I don't care if you only got one tooth in your mouth, I want to see that tooth gleaming. Okay? And so again, a very sort of pragmatic but innovative, low-cost approach, and by the way, their cost per client per year is about $4,000, maybe a little bit higher than that. Okay? Contrasted with, okay, that's hope, contrasted with what needs to change. Okay, our prison industrial complex, which is at $40,000 per inmate per year. And now asking, by the way, for $7 billion to fix their healthcare system, which is half of the cost of the governor's program to fix the entire system. Okay? Hope, change. Right? Second story. Community Coalition, South Los Angeles, COCO. Actually developed by Karen Bass, now Speaker of the Assembly. Right? Community Coalition is a grassroots community organization based in South Central Los Angeles, and they have become phenomenally good at how you take an unhealthy, distressed, toxic community environment, a bad neighborhood, and help transform it into a healthier place to live. Okay? That's the 80% that has nothing to do with healthcare, right, in low-income communities. That's why there's stroke, cancer, diabetes, homicide, drug abuse rates, violence rates are all significantly higher than the rest of the country. And what the Community Coalition has become adept and skilled at doing, for example, is closing down a crack house. How do you close a crack house? Not a course at the Harvard Business School, I assure you. Okay? An endeavor which takes heroism, guts, moxie, creativity, innovation, and even data, the way they've used it. Okay? They also closed down motels. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with South Central Los Angeles, yes, South Central Los Angeles has motels. And it is not a tourist hotspot. Okay? My family members call that they're coming to visit Los Angeles from Philadelphia or New York. They don't say, oh, we want to go to Disneyland and we want to go to Beverly Hills and we want to go to South Central LA, right? So why does South Central LA have motels? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because they are businesses for prostitution and drug dealing. Okay? So those motels have no business in that community because they contribute to the toxic nature of those environments for kids and families. Right? And the Community Coalition has figured out how do you take a motel or a crack house, shut it down, and turn it into, I don't know, a farmer's market. I'm not going to go through chapter and verse about how they do that, but they have figured it out. Okay? How do you go from hope, we are hopeful that this community can be a healthier place to live, to change? Okay? Third story, Santa Clara, much closer to here, Santa Clara Children's Health Initiative about 5 years ago, had a vision. So you know what? There should be no kids in our community without health insurance. This is America, this is California. There should be no kids without health insurance. Every child deserves health care. So they said, well, let's go do it. Without an act of Congress, without a bill in the legislature, they decided how to cobble together public programs and some private programs, and they raised some money from organizations like myself, the California Endowment, and I saw Crystal Haling from the Blue Shield Foundation and their foundation, and they've cobbled together a way to make sure that every child in that community can have health insurance coverage. Now there are 18 more local, county level children's health initiatives just like the one in Santa Clara. Okay, so the folks in Santa Clara, a very grassroots kind of a partnership between a pretty gutsy health plan executive and some labor leaders and some physicians and other officials, and they cobble together this program. All right? So they have demonstrated that it is possible to achieve the vision for every child to have health insurance. Right now today, Santa Clara, about 98% of the kids actually have health insurance coverage in that community, regardless of immigration status. Okay? So these are the stories of hope, right? That there is a better way. So you take someone who is just recently released from San Quentin or Chowchilla prison, that is a person who is relatively hopeless. You take that person to being hopeful, and then you go to change, all right? Big steps, big leaps. All right? Now I want to get something off my chest about our sector. Our sector is known as the nonprofit sector. Right? It's this conglomeration of community-based organizations and providers and philanthropies. I hate that name. I hate the name. Why are we defined as being non-something? Okay? A relative has a new baby in their home, you're going to say, oh, your baby's so non-ugly. Your kid graduates from high school, you say, you know, I'm so non-embarrassed about you, what you've done. Okay? And now why are we called the non-profit sector? As if we have to apologize for not being for-profit. Okay? We're just kind of this warm and fuzzy and cuddly group of people who give out sandwiches and make sure we have a place to sleep and, you know. But we really couldn't hack it in the for-profit world, so we're stuck in the non-profit sector. Okay? We got to change the name. Drummond, Ellen, we got to change the name. No more non-profit sector. I don't want to hear that word anymore. Pretend I'm going to slap you if you say that word in front. Of course I'm not, because I'm a man of peace. Right? So I have the new name. Ready? The Delta sector. Hope, change, delta, Greek thing, little, right? Because we're about our friends at Liberty Hill Foundation. Tori Osborne is here, was a president there. They have the best tagline for a foundation: change, not charity. Right? The stories of hope are ways to solve problems. They are not coming from Washington. They're not coming from Sacramento. They're coming from Southeast San Diego and South Central LA and West Oakland and North Chicago. That's where the stories of hope, the solutions are there. We can fix poverty. We can fix homelessness. We can fix healthcare. We can revitalize neighborhoods, but it's not going to come from Washington. And the question is, how do we do a better job of getting from hope to change in our sector? Not the warm and fuzzy, isn't it nice, really very not serious nonprofit sector, but the Delta sector, right? And I'm going to give you the mathematical equation that goes from hope to change. Are you ready? Okay. This is like Nobel Prize stuff here, Drummond. Right? There are 4 elements to the equation. First, you need stories. You need stories of hope. That's what most of the nonprofit sector does now. Okay? They are solving problems, but without scale, right? So the question is, how do you go from story of hope to scale? This notion that what the nonprofit sector needs and what our social challenges need, we need more innovation, is bulldinky. We have a lot of innovation. Our problem is not the lack of innovation. It's not the lack of new ideas. The problem is we don't know how to scale it up when we hit one. That's the problem. Okay? That has nothing to do with, it's not like, oh, let's just wait for the next killer app software development. We're talking about poverty and racism and injustice, right? So you've got to have the stories. Then you've got to have numbers. You've got to have data to show, just like Second Chance has, that for cheaper money there is a better way, right? Third, you need to package it. It needs to be messaged. You need to be able to tell that story about the story and numbers, right? And then fourthly, and here's the one that gets very uncomfortable, particularly in the world of stodgy, cool-headed, dispassionate philanthropy, you got to deal with power. Okay? You got to deal with power. Okay? Because I can have the stories, and I can have the data, and I can have the message, but if we're not dealing with the power, it doesn't happen. Okay? And the power in our world, the world of philanthropy, those of you that are among us, it's called funding advocacy. Okay? And so at our foundation, we've doubled in the last 5 years. I know I've got 30 seconds left, I know. In the last 5 years, we've doubled our advocacy funding because the problem, going from hope to change, means going from grassroots to treetops, right? You're going to have to impose the will of what the Second Chances and the community coalitions and the Santa Claras of the world have learned, so that big systems with huge amounts of money act and behave differently. Remember that definition of momentum, going from a body that goes from one place to another, hope to change, expectation and wish, desire, fulfillment, to something looks different. Okay. So it's the Delta sector, new sector, no more silos of education over here and healthcare over there and the poverty people over there and the housing over there. New silos now. Numbers, stories, right? What was the third one? Messaging, power, right? And in the Delta sector, we're each going to have, are you in the numbers department? Or are you in the messaging department, right? Integrated. Okay? And that's how I think we need to reimagine this work that we do, this sector that we have. Okay? Last quote, last comment. And it came up in the previous slide. If you look at each of the major systems that constitute the critical path for opportunity in this country, they are health and healthcare, public education, affordable housing, economic development, right? I'll add in the environment because we've got to take care of the planet too, right? And we can't, just can't keep urinating on this planet for the next 10 years and expect everything to be okay. We don't have a national, coherent, effective strategy on any of them. Not a one. Okay? Unacceptable, unsustainable, not tenable. And we're at a moment right now where the stories of innovation and the stories of hope and the stories of real change have got to be lifted up and owned by us. Okay? I'll close with my favorite philosopher, Moms Mabley. Forget Aristotle, and if you always do what you always did, you're going to always get what you always got. Thank you.